Yes.
We are back with someone great.
Yes, we are.
Yes. So, I judge Miss USA pageants and had an opportunity earlier this year, last year actually, to meet an incredible person who was one of the judges with me. And I was just taken aback. I was like, okay, we got to find out who he is, what he's all about. He's just coming with all this charisma. I know you're laughing over there.
Uh-huh.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give a huge welcome to our very dear friend, Mr. Angel Diaz, CEO of ADS Federal. Yay!
Yay!
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you for joining us today. It's such an honor to have you here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Your story is quite interesting. First off, you are a military vet.
Correct.
Thank you so very much for your
U.S. Navy,
service.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Our dad was Navy, too. So
Yes.
we have the utmost respect for you.
I knew I liked you, you see.
So give us a little bit of your background so that we know who we're dealing with.
Sure. So, as you said, I served in the military. I joined at 17, right out of high school.
Where are you from?
Miami, Florida.
Okay.
And, I always had an interest in the military. My dad, he was in the Marine Corps. And I grew up just learning from him and, watching the TV shows. Always interested in the military. So when I went to high school, I joined ROTC. And my interest became, magnified, essentially. And I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to serve my country. I ended up choosing the Navy, and I served almost 9 years as an information systems technician, so they call us ITs. And that's basically the guys that operate the networks and the radio systems, communication systems. And, I did 9 years. When I left the military, I immediately had a great job down in Tampa at the MacDill Air Force Base for the Special Operations Command, doing pretty much what I learned in the military. I went from being a user of technology to a developer of technology at that point.
Okay.
So my skill set that I learned in the military translated well, combined with my formal education in computer science. It was a perfect fit for what the government was looking for from an engineer like myself. And that was the beginning of my civilian career.
Okay.
It was always very exciting. It was very engaging. I was continuing to do what I love to do in support of my country in the military, but I was doing it from a different perspective now. It worked out well for me. I had the practical experience of serving in the military and using the systems and applications that we do as soldiers and sailors.
Right.
But I also had the academic background to now take a look at those systems and find ways to modernize them, make them better. Right. And as I said, my initial job as a civilian engineer was doing that, really figuring out how to make technologies better, easier to use, more effective in combat zones. What works in a laboratory or it works here in the United States doesn't always work the same in a hostile environment, right?
Right, absolutely. Right.
And at the time, there was a lot of movement in Iraq. You had a dense RF environment, radio frequencies. As you can imagine, there's a lot of folks radiating frequencies, right, radio systems. So a lot of the systems didn't really work well. They were getting jammed or they just wouldn't work. So part of what I and my team did was really develop and deploy next generation communication systems to enable the warfighter to communicate in these kinds of challenging environments. And so, I guess going back a little bit, my last duty station was actually here in Northern Virginia.
Nice.
When I left the military, I moved back to Florida, and I worked my way back up here, not intentionally. I just ended up coming back up here. Little by little, I would either get a promotion or a new project, and I ended up going to Northern Florida and then South Carolina. And then one day, I got a call from a recruiter at DARPA. It's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. If you're in IT or in research, you know who they are, right? They invented the internet. That's their claim to fame. So, most folks know who they are. So when I heard that, I immediately knew that I had to do whatever I needed to do to get up here. And I did. So I came back up here in 2008, 11 years ago now.
Wow.
And again, as an engineer, right? developing, deploying technologies for the Department of Defense. And, after a while, I began looking at the business aspect of what I do, right? And the way I got introduced to that was really, as an engineer, the business development team would typically engage me in developing content for proposals and going after opportunities. So that was really my first introduction to, the business side of what I do. And after a few years, I decided, well, let me try this on my own. And I did. Unfortunately, it wasn't for DARPA anymore. That's kind of, for me, that's, the top, right? And when you're starting out, you typically don't get to start at the top, right? You start out, you're basically yourself. There's no company name to associate with.
Right.
But I did have the opportunity to support the Park Police.
Okay.
As we call them RF program manager, essentially helping to develop and deploy their next generation communication system. So basically, the radio system that the law enforcement officers use in the area to talk, speak to one another over the radio. That was a great program. Had a great mentor there. He was the captain at the time, David Mulholland. He really took me under his wing and really gave me the courage to pursue my own business. And another law enforcement in the area took notice of the kind of thing that I was doing, and that was really the beginning of my first subcontract. Right, it was Angel Diaz, but under the flag of my original company, which is Technical Services Corporation, or TSE. And I've always been mission focused. Failure is not an option. It's really about execution. And I really brought that with me to my client. I bring that with me to all my clients, right? But, I had the opportunity with the FBI specifically. And, again, I just had some good clients who really took notice of what I was doing. And they gave me the first opportunity to bring my first employee on. And that was 9 years ago now. And he's still with us. His name is Ernesto Sayas, a great guy, veteran as well. He's a commander in the Navy. He still works with us today. And, today our company is actually ADS Federal, right?
Yes.
We're over 100 employees across, I would say, 10 different agencies or so.
Nice. Wonderful.
And I have a magnificent team. My wife, Marisol, she's our executive vice president.
Yep, she's so awesome.
she is awesome, right? The reason I can focus on what I do, right, which is really the business development and the solutioning, right, is because she runs the back office, HR, finance, that kind of thing. We just have a great team. I'm very fortunate to finally, after all these years of, finding the right folks and then they leave, or perhaps, things changing, I think I finally found the right team to help the company really get to that next level, to scale, right?
Yeah.
I always say, if it's not repeatable and it's not scalable, it's just a hobby, right? So it came to the point that, it came to a point when I reflected on the business or where I wanted to go. I realized that I couldn't do it all myself, right? So I really had to scale, and in order to scale, you need resources, you need a solid executive team, and great folks on the ground supporting our clients, doing great work every day.
Sure.
And I think so far so good. I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
So
I know that Natalie and I we've been watching you since we've met you, and we truly admire you and how structured and just watching everything. We've been in your offices, both offices, from the beginning of, at one area to where you are now, and looking at the employees, they're so wonderful and everything. And of course, Marisol, she is just a gem. What inspires you, or what gets you to this point of, I've got to make this happen? Each and every day, it's something within you that said, I'm going to make this happen.
Well, you always have to have goals, right? We all do. You have to define them. You have to verbalize them, right? And if you don't verbalize them, you don't make them real. So it's important to make them real, right? Figure out what your timeline that's associated with that goal is, or set of goals, and just put a plan in place to execute. So my thing is really, conceptualize an ideal or a goal, I verbalize it. So I'll speak to my team about it, my lawyers, accountants, my confidants, my friend Tony. We have a lot of conversations, right? And until, you can put some real words behind it, right? Kind of develop the plan and then just execute. That's simple formula, really.
Love it.
Okay, so for those beginning that stage, for those that are beginning that, I know that I have something to bring to the table. I know that I don't want to work for someone anymore. I want to become an entrepreneur. I want to do this on my own. What's some good advice, or what can you tell them to start doing to actually get the ball rolling?
So, and it's different for everyone, right? So
Sure.
I'll give you at least the way I think about it.
Okay.
So a lot of folks today want to go from zero to hero overnight.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So you can't just become an entrepreneur. I didn't just become an entrepreneur. I became very good at something for over 20 years
Yes.
before I decided to become an entrepreneur. Right? So I would say before you think about the business aspect of it, become good at your craft. Learn from those who are perhaps a few steps ahead of you. Work for someone, right? Because even if it's somebody that ends up not being the best person, chances are you're probably going to learn something from them, right? You're going to learn what not to do. You're going to learn maybe what you should do more of, right? So there's nothing wrong with working for other people. The reality is there's a lot of people who are further ahead than we are, and you should look at, learn from them. Right, it'll save you years. If you work for the right person, it'll save you years.
Absolutely.
And if you work for a small business, you really learn what the passion behind growing a business, what it takes to grow a business. Because at the end of the day, even if you get very good at something yourself, from a business perspective, you may not be able to scale. Right? So there's other things you have to learn, right? How to work with people, how to build teams, how to engage clients, how to lose a battle sometimes if you really want to win the war, right?
Right.
So there's a lot more to business than just being good at something. But first begin with yourself, because when you start a business, the first person you're selling is yourself.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right? When you get really good at it, then you can sell the business. But if you can't sell yourself, if you can't deliver a service or product better than anybody else, then you're not going to be able to sell your company. And you're not going to have a business. You're going to have a hobby. You see? So I would say don't focus so much on the business part of it yet. Focus on developing your ideas, right? What it is that you want to do. You need to focus, right? I see a lot of young folks. They try things for a week. They go to the next. They go to the next. And they go to the next, right? They never give themselves a chance to succeed. It's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
Right.
You are going to fail.
Yeah.
Right.
It isn't a failure that you learn, right? You tweak your approach and move forward little by little, step at a time. Nobody goes from zero to hero. Does it happen? Maybe. I don't know anyone that has done it, right?
Yes.
And I always tell folks, it's actually easy to succeed,
Yeah.
right? It's difficult to keep success. And the only way you can keep success is to learn something along the way. And if you don't have a journey, you're not going to learn anything.
Absolutely.
Right? So
I love that.
focus on the journey, learn as much as you can. So when you do achieve success,
Yeah.
you can keep success.
Wonderful.
There you go.
Wonderful. I love that. That was a strong piece of information that we need.
Absolutely.
If people want to either get in touch with you or hear more about you and ADS Federal, how do they get in touch with you?
So, I have an email address I can share with everyone.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
it's angel.diaz, D-I-A-Z, at adsfederal.com. Shoot me an email. And I do have a LinkedIn page as well.
Okay.
It's under Angel Diaz. If you do a search, I'm connected to ADS Federal. Our company has a great LinkedIn presence.
Yes.
It's basically those are the two ways that I engage folks.
I love it. Angel, thank you so very
It's
much.
my
This has
pleasure.
been so good, but it's so short,
right? It's so short.
I love it. Thank you so very much for being here and educating us, inspiring us, and just giving us some great tidbits of information that I think a lot of people need to hear.
It's my pleasure, and I thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Natalie.
Absolutely. Okay. Like us on Facebook.